Welcome back to DIYs with Sonja. Today we are doing something so good, and if you loved my Pottery Barn video, you're going to absolutely lose your mind over this one. We are talking Faux Stone, concrete, and ceramic dupes all made at home, all on a budget, and all looking like they came straight off the shelves of Pottery Barn, McGee and Co., and others. I am talking designer looks for a fraction of the price. Whether you are a total beginner or you've been DIYing for years, every single project in this mega marathon is doable, affordable, and honestly impressive. So grab your supplies, get comfortable, because we have got a lot of gorgeous projects to get through today. And before we dive in, if you're new here, welcome. Make sure you hit that subscribe button and turn on notifications so you never miss a video. All right, let's get into it. The first project that I'm going to be creating, I have a tremendous savings here for you. I did pick up this vase for $5, but this is not the item that I'm going to be duping. Over on Pottery Barn, I had found this vase, this look actually, the vase with hydrangea bundle, and the hydrangea bundles here is $70, but I really love this whole look, and that's what I'm going to be recreating. So as you can see, my vase was a little bit taller and a little bit thinner, but I think I can achieve that same look. Now for the hydrangea flowers, I did get mine out of the garden, and if you let your hydrangeas dry in a vase, they will get that dusty green look to them a little bit, and they do last for quite a while just sitting in a vase with no water or anything like that. But I did look over on Amazon, as well as I've seen a couple of the one Timu had a few for a lot less than just than $70. I think the most expensive one was on Amazon Canada for about a 40, but you get a much larger bundle. So look around your garden. You might find the fall foliage that you like, and it looks really nice in your vase. So to get this vase painted, I am going to be, so as you saw, I mixed white and creamy color paint. This is chalk paint, so it's a lot thicker. I was going to add flour to it to make it even more thicker, but my cream colored old ochre chalk paint was pretty dry, so it was actually quite thick, as you can see. The reason why I mixed the two colors is because the old ochre was too yellowish, and the white was too bright. So I just wanted to kind of tone down the brightness of the white. So that's why I mixed them. And I am applying a fairly thick layer because I want that thickness to show in the vase. So I forgot to mention that I will leave the links to the Amazon hydrangeas that I found in the description box in case if you wanted to venture out and get some for yourself. Also Dollarama, if you're located in Canada, I've seen hydrangea flowers there as well. I've never seen them at Dollar Tree, but definitely at Dollarama. At Michael's store, I did not see that color, although I do know that my mother-in-law had gotten herself some hydrangeas like that a while back, so it's worth looking into it. I was just checking on the website. I think making over vases is one of the most affordable ways to add those look for less high-end dupes to your decor, because they tend to be a lot cheaper at thrift stores, and usually you can find the style of them like the high-end stores have them, and with a little bit of paint you can achieve that high-end look. So right now I am just trying to blend, so there's none of the brush strokes are showing, and I'm just using a crafter sponge to do that. Since I like to show you everything, I will show you this step as well, but I do find that this did not uh, really add much to the vase. I wanted to just darken the certain spots just a little bit, but I didn't want to go too much with this brown because I feel like it has a bit of a purplish tinge to it. So I went really, really lightly just to dab on. But you can completely skip this step if you wanted to and just move on to the next step. And the next step is optional as well. If you want, you can just leave it at this point, or you can go and get some dirt and get dirty. My camera ran out of space, my card, so I had to resort to my phone. So here we are. So all I take is before the vase completely dries, I just add some dirt to it, sprinkle it. You want this to be, for this particular project, you want the dirt to be dry. I've done projects where the dirt is wet and then it just kind of paints everything, but then you can't sprinkle it on and the vase has to be dry. So I let this dry completely, and then once it's dried completely, I take a brush and I just brush the dirt off and kind of try and blend it in a little bit. And that's it. And now I went out to my garden and clipped some hydrangeas, added them to my vase, and here it is on my shelf. I think it turned out so nice, and I think it's a pretty close dupe for the one at Pottery Barn and for a lot less. For our last DIY, I'm transforming a wooden bowl that a friend gave me that she also thrifted. It had been previously painted, and while I didn't mind the color, it felt a little flat and new. I wanted to give it that heavy organic stone finish you see in high-end found collections. I grabbed some drywall compound, put on some gloves, and started applying it to the bowl. I use my hand as a spatula because it gives the piece a much more irregular, hand-molded feel than a flat tool would. I covered the outside, the top rim, and the inside. And just a reminder, because of the compound, this bowl is now strictly decorative. Definitely don't serve any food in this one. While the compound was still wet, I wanted to add some dimension or grit. If the ground wasn't frozen here, I would have loved to use real dirt from my garden. Instead, I used Dixie Belle dirt. For some of you, this might actually be a cleaner and easier option than digging in your yard. I put a tiny bit on my hand and dabbed it onto the wet compound, sprinkling it all over the inside and blending it out with my fingers and my palm. This gave it those beautiful earthy shadows and a true stone look. It's no longer that stark, boring white. It has so much depth. I added some bowl fillers, although I have to admit they look a little bit like potatoes in here right now. This bowl is heavy hitter for styling. It looks amazing on entryway console or as a centerpiece on a dining room table. Now moving on to the absolute favorite DIY of the day. I found this vase at the thrift store a while back for $7.99. It had a fantastic shape, but the color was lacking. My inspiration for this piece is the gorgeous Emilia ceramic collection from Pottery Barn. I knew this vase was the perfect candidate to recreate that high-end artisan pottery look for a fraction of the cost. I started by mixing up a custom color using Dixie Belle's chalk paint in ecru as well as mud puddle. After the first few brushstrokes, it was way too smooth. And to get that handmade gritty pottery feel, I mixed in a quarter cup of sea spray texture additives. If you don't have a texture additive on hand, baking soda mixed into acrylic or chalk paint works wonders to create a faux clay finish. I brushed the textured paint on, and while it was still wet, I took my brush and began stippling or dabbing the paint to build up even more dimension. I let that dry completely. Next, I took some wooden half beads. I honestly should have glued these on before painting, but I got them later, so I just painted them separately. To attach them, I used hot glue around the collar and the belly of the vase. Before I wrap up today's video, I just wanted to take a quick second to share something a little personal with you. If you've been here for a while, you know that over on my home decor channel, Home with Sonja, I share everything home related from decorating ideas to room transformations. And recently I posted a video over there that is a little different from what I usually share. We sold our home, and I shared an empty home tour along with a life update that has been on my heart for a while now. It's honest, it's a little emotional, and it's something I really wanted to share with the people who have followed along this journey with me. If you want to hear the full story, where we're at, what the plan was, and what changed, I'll have the link right below in the description box. I would truly love for you to come over and watch it, and if you're not already subscribed over there, it would mean the world to me to have you in that community too. Thank you as always for being here. You guys make both of these channels so special, and I don't take that for granted for even a second. Okay, now back to the DIY. For a permanent hold or on embellishments like this, use a dot of hot glue for an instant bond, right next to a dab of E6000 or Gorilla Glue for a long-lasting hold. Once the beads were set, I took straight mud puddle paint on paper towel and lightly sponged it all over the vase, blending it into the textured base. This created incredible depth. Now to finish it off, I rubbed in some white wax, getting in all the crevices around the beads. Then I went in with a new favorite, the grunge gray wax. They're both from Dixie Belle. This gray wax completely elevated the piece. It gave it that authentic Asian pottery vibe. Honestly, it ended up looking a bit more like a high-end Olive Atelier's piece than Pottery Barn, and I am not mad about it. I'm so in love with how this turned out. And there you have it, 3 high-end looks created right at home on a budget. Even to be bringing you a video that I have been trying to make for a while. I just needed a lot of time because I knew it was going to take a lot of time to get this done. So we are going to be making some paper-mâché bowls, 2 different types of bowls. One, I'm going to use a mold type of thing, and the other one I'm going to mold an existing bowl that I have. And the type of paper mache that I'm going to be using is equal parts of water and glue to toilet paper. I went out and bought loads of toilet paper. I did only end up using 4 rolls altogether for the 2 projects, and I had a little bit left over. But this was very simple to do. Pretty much everything was on hand. I have a big jug of school glue from my daycare, so I was able to use that, and then water and obviously toilet paper. And I just bought the cheapest toilet paper at the supermarket. So you want to mix all of this together and to create almost like a clay type of consistency. And you don't want it to be too wet. If it's too wet, you might want to drain some of the water off. Try out some of these paper mache projects that you see all over the high-end stores, and they're quite pricey. You can even buy some off of Etsy, and but I just thought that I could definitely make this out myself for a lot cheaper. So here are some of my inspirations that I'm going to be trying to recreate. And like I said, I'm using toilet paper, glue, and water. I think Sandra might be using a different type of paper mache materials, so make sure you check out her channel. Like I said, her channel will be linked down below. That way you can get a couple different ideas on a couple different things you can use to create our projects. So for my paper mache, like I said, I'm using toilet paper and glue and water, and you just want to kind of get that clayish consistency. You want it to be wet, but not like dripping wet. The toilet paper does dissolve quite quickly, so you will be able to see how much of it you actually need. And keep mixing it until you reach that paste consistency. For my first project, I'm using this bowl to create a mold, and I'm going to add some clear cling wrap onto it, but I did have to use a little bit of tape just to keep it in place because I did find that it was moving for me a little bit too much. So I guess you could probably use parchment paper too, but I'm pretty sure you would have to tape that up as well. And this did give it a little bit of more of a smoother finish on the inside. I do want to mention that if you are planning on doing this project, give yourself at least week and a half for it to cure. Mine took about For this bowl, it took about a week. For the other one, because there were 2 steps to it, it took a week and a half, and I did end up having to put it in the oven to cure as well for about 40 minutes while it was running at 200 degrees, and then I let it just sit in it until it was until I was ready to use it. I turned off the oven, so it sat in a warm oven for a couple hours. Now, when I'm creating this bowl, I wanted one side to be a little bit longer or taller, and the other side to be a little bit shallower, so that's why you have 2 different sides. And you can, don't worry about being perfect on the edges, because you can always cut them down, sand them down a little bit to the size that you need it, or to have it as clean cut as you want it. So here is what mine look like all finished, and you just want to cover all the spots so you don't have any holes. And now it's time to dry. So while that's drying, I'm going to be working on this bowl. I've had this bowl for a very long time. It kind of got damaged over the years, so I'm just giving it a good cleanup, and I'm going to cover it up with the paper-mâché. I'm not creating a mold, so I don't need to put any cling wrap onto it. I'm just going to start adding paper-mâché, spreading it out, and making sure that, especially on the inside, all the areas are covered. You kind of want to make sure all the there's no holes in it, whether it's on the inside or the outside. And if you want to smooth it out a little bit more, you can always wet your hands and go over it with a wet hand more. I was okay with having it look a little rougher because I was adding some antiquing wax to it, so I wanted to bring out the roughness out a little bit more with the antiquing wax. I did work on the inside and the top first, then I let that dry, and like I said, it took I waited for about a week and a day, and it was still a little wet on the inside, but I was able to flip it over because the top was dry, and then I worked on the bottom part of it, and that took a couple days. There was just a small amount of stuff that I had to add, and it took, like I said, 3 days in, it was still wet, so I did end up putting it into the oven at 200 degrees, and I let it cure for about 40 minutes, and then I turned the oven off and just left it in there for a couple hours until I was ready to add some antiquing wax to it. So this is what the other side looks like, and I'm working on covering that up. And I also have a couple spots left that need to be covered up as well, because it was kind of hard to flip it over without damaging the parts that I had covered before it got dry. So I'm just going to cover those up now. And I'm not gonna lie, this DIY was very, very relaxing to me to make. I quite enjoyed just molding it and smoothing out all the areas, and it's just, I found it very, very relaxing. And here it is all done, and now I'm going to let that cure for a couple days. For the bowl, I have decided just to use the wax, the Annie Sloan dark wax or antiquing wax, and I did go with a brush first, and then I do move on to the sponge as well, and I am applying lots at the beginning and then just trying to spread that all out. And then I'm going to go with a sponge and just accent a little areas where there's like a clumping of the paper-mâché, just to make that pop out a little bit more. I did end up using this wider brush. I just think it made the job go a little bit faster. And I think the bristle brush, a little chippy brush, would work well as well. So the inside is almost done, a little bit more blending, and now I'm going to do the outside. I really do love the way this was shaping out, and like I said, you can do this any way you want. You can leave it just white, you can paint it one solid color, you can use a couple different colors and blend to make it more like a concrete look. The world is your oyster, how you want this to turn out. I went with more of this look because it kind of goes well with my current decor. Well, I hope you guys enjoyed these quick and easy paper-mâché DIYs. Make sure you check out Sandra's channel because she will have even more to share with you, so that way you can get tons of inspiration for your next DIY project. If you're not subscribed to my channel, please, I would love it if you consider subscribing, becoming part of my YouTube family. I share tons of high-end dupes here, as well as furniture makeovers and some Dollar Tree DIYs, so I hope you find something that you enjoy. And here is how this looks, and I think I'm going to keep it on my coffee table in my family room. I'm not sure if I'm going to add anything to it because I just love it as it is. Next up is a gorgeous designer vase dupe, the Santiago vessel from Amber Interiors, which sells for a jaw-dropping $400. Mine just $3 from the thrift stores. While the shape was very similar, my size was much smaller, so I prepped the glass vase using Dixie bonding boss, a primer that helps paint adhere to tricky surfaces like glass. Once dry, I painted it with Dixie Belle's coffee chalk paint, which is a deep, moody brown that shifts with the light. It sometimes looks black, sometimes brown, and adds such a beautiful richness and organic designer feel. The final look has all the charm and texture of the $400 version without the splurge. Next up, I worked on a vase I found for $5 at the thrift store. I love when I can take something outdated and give it a completely fresh look. This vase had a lovely shape and some subtle texture, but needed a makeover to fit my style. I was inspired by Ophelia Martin Natural Vase, which retails for $150 at Crate and Barrel. Can you believe that? While it's beautiful, I was confident I could recreate a similar look for a fraction of the cost. Started with the base coat of any Sloan chalk paint in the color Country Gray, a warm beige tone that pairs perfectly with neutral decor. After the first coat dried, I went in with a thicker second coat, dabbing the paint to create texture. If your paint isn't thick enough, you can always add cornstarch to give it more body. Once that layer dried, I blended brown and beige paints using a damp sponge, softly adding color to random spots for a natural age effect. I love how this piece came out. It's now sitting on my tray and it gives such a high-end feel, exactly what I was going for. Plus, I saved so much money. If you'd like to see how I'm decorating my home after Christmas and using some of these DIYs, head on over to my home channel where I'm currently sharing how I transition my decor from Christmas to winter. I hope it gives you some inspiration for your own home. The link to my home channel is in the description box, or just search up at home with Sonja. All right, let's jump into our very first project. And honestly, this one might be my favorite thing I've made in a long time. We are creating a gorgeous scalloped clay pot that gives off the most amazing old world artisan pottery vibe. Very McGee and Co., very Olive Atelier, and we are making it ourselves. Now, I found this large clay pot at the dollar store. You can find these at both Dollar Tree and Dollarama for just a couple of dollars. So this is already starting off beautifully budget-wise. I also picked up a block of air-dried clay in terracotta color. Now, it does not have to be terracotta, that is just what they had, and I decided to go for it. But any color will work here. because we're going to be painting this beauty anyway. So, full transparency with you guys, if you have been on this channel for a while, you know the clay and I have had a complicated relationship. I am a work in progress, but I really wanted to create a scallop edging for this pot, and clay felt like exactly the right material to make that happen. So, here we go. I took the entire clay block and rolled it out up to about a 1/4 inch thickness. You want the surface nice and smooth and even. Once I had that, I cut the slab right in half. And it turned out perfectly because each half will fit exactly halfway around the pot. I did buy a second block just in case, but this worked out perfectly without it. Now here's the fun part. To create the scallop edging, I just took a butter knife and carefully cut out those little round scallop shapes along the top edge. It's actually much easier than it sounds. Here's another option. If you want a quicker method, if you have a large flower-shaped cookie cutter, you could cut it open and use the curved edges as your scalloped guide. I did not have one, so I winged it with the butter knife, and honestly, I think it turned out really pretty. Once the scallop edge was cut, I used the straw to poke little holes into the circles along the edge. This adds such a beautiful decorative detail. Then I took each piece and wrapped it around the rim of the pot, tucked in the edge slightly inward so the when it dries, sits securely on top. Now, I have read that you should cover air dry clay with the damp cloth while it dries, but honestly, that method has never worked well for me. I did a little more research and this time decided to just let air dry completely on its own without adding moisture. And it worked. It took about 24 hours to fully dry, and I just left it out in my workspace. No oven, no special conditions. The only place it cracked was right where I joined the two pieces together, but honestly, I think it adds to the character. It looks like a real antique pottery piece, which is exactly the vibe we are going for. Okay, now for the painting, and this is what it really starts to come to life. My inspiration for painted finish was Olive Ateliers. If you have not checked that, they are absolutely gorgeous and always such a great place to find pottery and vase inspiration. For my first coat, I used a chalk paint in color called Cobblestone. It's a beautiful cream color with just a hint of gray. Really soft, really elegant. For the second layer, I brought in chalk paint and brought in a silk paint in color Wharf. It is a deeper gray green, so earthy and beautiful. Now here's my little trick. I did not wait for the first coat to dry. I wanted that to blend together organically, and painting wet on wet lets you do that exactly. I put a little of the Wharf paint on a stir stick. I dabbed it on the paper to remove the excess and then use the paper towel to sponge the color all over the pot. Light dabbing motion, no heavy hand here. Then it came back with a little more cobblestone to blend everything together and bring back some of that soft base color. You guys, I think this turned out so pretty. It genuinely looks like an expensive piece of pottery. Oh, and little heads up, while I was painting a piece, of the scalloped edging broke off, but it broke off cleanly in one piece, so I was able to glue it right back on. No stress. And that is our scallop clay pot. And there she is, our rosemary topiary tree sitting beautifully in our home made scalloped clay pot. It totally gives off the McGee & Co. magic, but at a fraction of the cost. I am absolutely in love with how this turned out. DIY is inspired by the Pottery Barn textured earthenware vase, which retails for a whooping $99, but we're making our own for just a few dollars. I'm starting with a thrifted vase that has a great shape but definitely needs a makeover. To achieve that high-end textured look, I am applying drywall compound all over the vase using a putty knife. This is a trick I use often because it creates a beautiful organic texture that mimics expensive earthenware. If you don't have drywall compound, you can also use baking soda mixed with paint for a similar effect, or even plaster of Paris mixed into a fairly thick texture. Once the drywall compound was applied, I did not wait for it to dry before creating the lines. I used a comb to make the lines evenly distributed, referencing my inspiration piece as a guide. This process was very therapeutic and I really enjoyed it. Once it dried for about 24 hours, I sanded down any rough peaks using sandpaper from Dollar Tree. The final result turned out stunning, and I think it's a very close match to the Pottery Barn inspiration piece for just a fraction of the price. We're about halfway through our 16 high-end vessel dupes, and I have to know which one is your favorite so far. Let me know in the comments. If you're loving these makeover techniques, make sure to give this video a thumbs up. It tells me you want to see more high-end home decor on a budget, and it really helps the channel grow. Alright, let's get back into it. This next one is a total game changer for the aged stone look. Okay, so let's kick things off with a project that's going to totally elevate your space. This aged paper-mâché bowl. I've been obsessed with this look, especially from Olive Atelier, but let's be honest, spending this much money on a bowl is just not in cards for me. So I decided to make my own, and trust me, you can totally do this too. So I found this adorable ceramic bowl at a thrift store for just a few dollars. It was in great condition but didn't have the designer feel yet. I gave it a quick clean and then added a layer of Mod Podge. This step will help the plaster adhere better and give it that smooth, seamless texture that you see in high-end pieces. I will be using plaster of Paris that I picked up at Dollarama for just $3. I mix it up with water to create a thick, creamy consistency. You want it to be thick enough to spread on a bowl, but not so thin that it drips. I also want to mention that I know I'm replicating a paper-mâché look. I did do a DIY that I shared a while back. I will link it in the corner here. That was actual paper mache. I just wanted this time to use a different material, but that it gives me almost the same kind of look. So this is why I'm using plaster of Paris this time. I started with a thin layer, just covering the surface, and then let it dry. Once it dried, I went in for a second coat, this time adding some texture by using a spatula. I made sure to leave little peaks and valleys for a realistic organic look. Once it dried, it was time to give the bowl some character. Once it was completely dry, I grabbed my chalk paint. I used a soft natural tone that's warm but doesn't scream trying too hard. I painted it all over and let it dry. After the paint dried, I used some dirt. Yep, dirt. I rubbed it on textured areas to give the bowl a more aged, authentic look. If you're not into dirt, you can always use dark wax or even coffee grounds, anything that gives a deep vintage feel. And look at how gorgeous this turned out. It's a perfect statement piece for your home. And the best part, I didn't spend more than 10 on the whole thing, which is fractional what this would cost from a designer. For my next project, I'm going to be using this vase that I had thrifted for $5. I absolutely love the shape of it, and the inspiration for this project is going back to Olive Atelier again. And here is my inspiration. So my project cost me, my vase cost me $5. This one is $145, and I think the style of it is fairly similar, the shape, I mean. And I'm going to be using almost the same paints that I used previously, just because I kind of want to keep the same color palette for my vases, so that way I can pair them nicely together. So this pot is called Indo Pot Ringed, and on their website is $145. So mine, I am at, like I said, $5 plus some paint. Oh, and I'm also going to use a piece of rope that I'm going to be attaching with the hot glue gun, just to give it that ribbed effect that the other vase has. Now the nautical rope that I had was fairly thick, and I didn't want it that thick, but the other rope that I had was a little too thin, so I took the nautical rope apart and used just one of the strands. Like I said, I'm using a hot glue gun to glue this on. And I'm not looking for perfection as far as the height goes. I think it did end up looking a little bit wonky, but that's okay. It's the imperfections that make these vases look absolutely stunning. So once it was all glued on and cured, which took no time at all, I took the same beige paint and I was going to put it on. Now, being that this is a clear vase, glass vase, the chalk paint alone wasn't enough, so I do end up mixing it with the flour just to get a bit of more of a almost like a plaster texture, so that way when I'm going to be applying it, it will be very, very thick and chunky, which is what I was going for. And it, at the same time, it gave me the coverage that I was looking for. I have been loving decorating with vases in this last year or so, and I have been slowly adding more and more to my decor stash. However, I did lose two of them just this past season. I was one of them was a clay pot, and I got somehow water on it, and the bottom fell off. So oh, here is the close-up of how chunky that paint actually looks. So as I was saying, and so I lost the bottom of that vase, so it became pretty useless. And I was okay with not having the bottom because I don't typically put water in it anyways, just usually some fake florals, but it was very uneven, and I was trying to sand it to make it even, and it just wasn't working. And then the other one I dropped while I was trying to put it away. But I did come across a really good thrift store that carries lots and lots of different vases, and they are reasonably priced. I find that's a Goodwill. Their prices for vases are much better than our Value Village. Value Village, you're paying anywhere from like $7.99 and up, whereas I have found most of these vases for $5 and under. So a lot more reasonable, and the sizes are typically the same for the price difference. So as you saw, I did use some makeup applicator just to add a couple of the chunky parts of the paint on there, just because I was finding that the brush wasn't really getting them on there. So I'm going to allow this vase to dry completely before I move on to another step. So for my next step, I'm using thick black paint. I have thickened this black paint with a little bit of flour, and I just had it left over from a different project, so I was just dabbing that on, and I'm dabbing it on with a crafter's sponge that I have wetted, and then I'm going back into the same base coat paint and blending it in. I am not going to be using the brown and white paint for this project. I am also not covering the whole vase with the sponging technique. I am just doing it at random spots. That way it will make it a little bit different than the other one, and it'll give me the effect that I'm looking for comparing to the inspiration piece, but it will still be very well matched with the other vase when I'm decorating. And here is how it turned out. I am obsessed with it. I absolutely love all the texture on it and the fact that you can't even tell that that's an actual rope that's glued on there. And I love how it paired well with the little hay that's in DIY with the thrifted ceramic vase I found for just $9.99. The shape instantly reminded me of the French glazed vase from Pottery Barn. Mine is slightly larger, but definitely gave me the inspiration to reimagine it in that soft, neutral style. First things first, I cleaned it thoroughly with white lightning, a heavy-duty cleaner that removes grease, grime, and sticky residue. This step is key when working with thrifted or non-porous pieces to ensure everything adheres properly. Then I applied a coat of bonding boss, which is a primer that helps chalk paint stick to slick surfaces like ceramic or glass. This step prevents your paint from peeling or chipping later, especially important for decor that might get moved around each seasonally. Once the bonding primer dried, pro tip, I placed it outside briefly to speed things up. I went in with burlap chalk paint by Dixie Belle. It's a creamy beige tone that's warm and subtle, but once dry, I felt it needed just a bit more contrast. A little tip, if your base coat ever feels a bit off tone, layer with a whitewash. To add more interest, I sectioned off the vase and painted the top portion with Hampton Olive, a soft muted green that feels very high-end. I did apply 2 coats of this Hampton Olive, waiting it to dry in between the coats. Then once everything was fully dry, I mixed cotton chalk paint with a bit of water to create a whitewash and brushed it over the bottom part of the vase. I wiped it back to lighten everything slightly and blended the tones. It gave it that weathered age look that I love in high-end ceramics. Here you can see me applying the second coat of the Hampton Olive. Like I said, I waited for the top to dry fully before applying the next coat. Also, to finish the project off, I did go in and create a line where the two colors meet, which was a bit lighter than the bottom color, just to mimic the look that the original piece had. And then I even painted just a bit inside the rims so the illusion is complete from every angle. For added texture and that perfectly imperfect aged pottery look, I sprayed on matte wax and applied Dixie mud using a chip brush. First, I sprinkled the mud and then I blended everything with the chip brush, concentrating the dirt into the crevices and blending some light dry brushing to soften the finish. You want to make sure that the wax didn't dry fully and it has that wet, tacky feel to it before applying the dirt. And to blend everything in, I mixed in cotton paint, chalk paint, and the burlap chalk paint and blended all of it in, adding a little bit of paint and a little bit of dirt. Once I was happy with the finish, I sealed it with Rust-Oleum clear gloss spray and just look at that transformation. It cost me around $15 to create. If you're loving these budget-friendly fall dupes so far, don't forget to hit that like button. It really helps my channel grow. And if you're new, subscribe and turn on the bell so you never miss a DIY. I post lots of Pottery Barn, McGee & Co., Crate and Barrel, and so many more high-end store-inspired ideas year-round. While back, while I was thrifting, I came across this glass vase for $10.99. It was a decent sized piece with a really lovely classic shape, but I'll be honest, I struggled for a while to figure out exactly what to do with it. That was until I saw the Lebo paper-mâché vase from McGee & Co. I realized this thrift find was the perfect canvas for a high-end look for less. First, I removed all the stickers and gave it a good clean. Now, painting a glass can sometimes be a little tricky because it's so slick. But since I plan on adding a lot of texture, I wasn't too worried about it being perfectly smooth. I started with one coat of Oyster Silk paint from Dixie Belle. This is an all-in-one paint. It's a primer, paint, and a sealer, which gave me the great coverage I needed. If you were just painting the glass without texture, I definitely recommend two coats, but for this project, one was plenty. After painting the full vase, I let it fully dry. Next, it was time for the texture. I started with about a quarter of a measuring spoon of sea spray texture additive. Now, you can absolutely use a teaspoon of baking soda here instead. I actually intended to use baking soda to show you how that looks, but I realized I was freshly out. So sea spray it was. I mixed it into about a cup of paint, but I felt like it needed a bit more grit, so All in all, I used about half a spoonful of sea spray to 1 cup of paint. You wanted you wanted it to be rich and thick, paste-like consistency. Instead of traditional brushstroke, I grabbed a rounded brush and pounced or dabbed the mixture all over the glass. This creates the authentic paper-mâché look without the mess of actual paper and glue. I've actually used a different technique for this in the past, so I'll link the video in the corner if you want to see another way to do it. I made sure to go a little thicker near the top rim because the inspiration piece had that heavy handmade feel at the opening. You could let this dry and then dry brush a tiny bit of beige paint over the top to mimic the inspiration piece even further. However, I absolutely loved it just the way it was. It's the perfect soft color for spring. I've styled it here on my coffee table with some fresh stems. The organic texture against the greenery makes the whole room feel more curated and calm, and styling it on top of a dark wood coffee table makes the color pop and look high-end. Okay, project number 3, and this one is so clever, you guys. Pottery Barn and so many other stores right now carry these beautiful footed bowls. They're so pretty and such gorgeous statement pieces, but the price tags, they range from $74 all the way up to $194 depending on the size. Even on the clearance with an extra 20% off, you're still looking at anywhere from $47 to $123. I made mine for under $10. I picked up 2 plastic bowls at Dollarama. One cost $1.50 and the other one was $3.50. If you shop at Dollar Tree, you might be able to get 2 of these for $1.75 each and save a little more. I removed the price stickers and then flipped the smaller bowl upside down and hot glued it to the bottom of the large bowl. And just like that, we have a footed bowl shape. Now here's the part that makes this look like a real ceramic piece. I mixed about half a cup of sea spray to some paint to create a thick textured mixture. I probably added about half a cup of paint. You want it to be this consistency of a thick brownie batter. Not too runny, not too stiff. This is going to give us that gorgeous terracotta ceramic texture finish. If you do not have sea spray at home, baking soda works beautifully as a substitute. Very similar texture. I started with the thinner coat first to get coverage everywhere, and then without waiting for it to dry, I went back in with a much thicker application. The whole piece only needed the one color, and within a few hours it was completely dry. You guys, it looks so incredibly styled on a coffee table with some artichokes alongside of it. Those artichokes also came from Pottery, by the way, a little treat to myself. For the first project, I'm going to be using this two-handled vase that I've had for a while. I already made it over once, but I felt like it needed another makeover. And the inspiration for this vase is coming from Olive Atelier. I am really liking the way these vases look, especially the medium size one. As you can see, these are $125, and all mine cost was a little bit of paint, which came probably under $1 since I already had the paints and I didn't use very much of it. So I'm going to use some acrylic black paint, some white paint, and I also I don't know why I picked up both black paints, but that was supposed to be a brown paint, chocolate brown, melted chocolate it's called. And then I'm also going to use my country gray chalk paint. Now, if I wasn't going to use a chalk paint, I probably would have mixed just some beige paint with some flour or baking soda just to give it that stony look for the vase. But my chalk paint's fairly thick, so it's giving me that chalky finish anyways, that resembles a bit of a stone finish. So I'm just going to use that, but you can totally make your own by mixing, like I said, flour or baking soda into your paint. And I'm going to cover this whole thing. This is going to be my base coat. I just want to have an even coat on this this vase. I will be using this same paint for blending as well a little later on. So once the vase had some time to dry, I didn't want it to be completely dry just for blending purposes, but just a touch of dryness on it so it's not completely wet. I am going to wet my paper towel and dip it in. I had mixed the chocolate white and then I added some black, and I'm going to be dabbing this on and blending it all together. And you want to blend until it looks natural, so there's no like obvious lines or smears or anything like that. And then I'm going to be using also the base coat just to add more blending in. And this, I always say, you have your inspiration piece, you can adjust the color and the look of it any way you want. That's the beauty of creating something yourself, because you can totally get the colors to be exactly the way you want them to be, even though if you maybe did not love all the colors of the inspiration piece, when you're creating your own, you can add the colors that you want. I was going to wait to share these vases later on, but since I have used them in my fall decorating over on my home channel, I have gotten so many requests to share this video to get for you guys to get the idea how to the techniques that I used and how to do it yourself. So here we are, right smack in the middle of fall decorating video, the fall DIY videos, but that's okay because I'm going to style them with some fall florals, so it's going to be almost like a fall DIY, but it's something that you can use all year long. I did end up switching my paper towel for just a little rag that I was doing the same exact technique. I was just finding must have a really bad quality towels that were falling apart on me. And here is how the vase turned out. I absolutely love it. I think it gave it a whole new life without spending any money. It's almost like having a brand new piece of decor in my house, and again for free. And I'm going to show you, I did pair it with some fall florals from Dollarama, and I think it looks absolutely stunning. What do you guys think? For my next project, I'm going to be making over these two vases. These actually belong to my mother-in-law, who has thrifted with the intention of getting me to make them over. I had finally gotten her to pick out what she wants to get done with them. So I'm going to give them a base coat just to have an even starting point. And I'm doing this the fastest way, which is spray painting it with this satin black spray paint. And here they are spray painted. That way I don't have any of those lines showing through. Then once inside and when completely dry, I mixed up some of that black acrylic paint with some flour just to get a lot thicker texture, because we are going to be trying to recreate this look from Pottery Barn. It is this Cortland vase from Cortland Vase Collection. As you can see, it has a little pattern on it, and she really liked that pattern on this vase. So I'm going to try and create that with some luck. And she couldn't remember exactly how much she had paid for her vases. She believes it was $15 for both, and as you can see, regular price these are range from $112 to $141, but on sale is $78 to $99. So quite a bit of savings for her, $15, and then a little bit of paint that I have used. So like I said, I'm going to mix the black paint with the flour, so that way I can create that design that she is looking for. So one of the reasons why I have decided to spray paint that as well was because once I'm going to be creating the design, which I will be doing it with a pencil. You can do it with a chopstick, or one of those skewer sticks, or any thin object that can give you nice thin lines. I just had a pen on hand, so I am using that. But that way, when you are doing the lines underneath, it's not showing the original color. It is going to be that black base color that I spray painted on. I was working in section because I was worried that if I paint the whole thing all at once and go with a pen, that the first section would dry out on me. So here are the lines. I think that is looking pretty good. So I'm going to continue the same process for the rest of the vase, working in sections. So I am just finishing this here, and I will be doing the other one as well, the taller one, but I'm not going to bore you with the same process because it's exactly the same, but this way you can see how I did it for both of them. I think they turned out beautiful. Here they are all dried. She absolutely loved them. She loved the fact that they had so much character versus just a simple paint job. I paired them with some Timu branches, and I think they are going to be great on her fireplace for her fall decor, since I had inspired her to decorate her home. Things off today with a DIY vase makeover. If you've been hanging out with me for a while, you might remember a few videos back where I tried to recreate a gorgeous dusty blue floral vase from Pottery Barn. It didn't quite turn out the way I envisioned, but redemption is here. While browsing Dollarama, I spotted this beautiful little glass vase that already had this stunning floral engraving and texture built right into it. I knew I had to give this dupe another try. I'm starting with some same beautiful soft blue paint I used last time, silk paint in the color Cape Current. What I love about this silk paint is that it's an all-in-one formula, meaning the primer, paint, and sealer are mixed right in. This makes it grip beautifully to glass. Even if your first coat looks a little streaky, don't worry, we're layering so it will all blend perfectly. I gave the vase one solid coat and let it dry to about 95%. You want it just slightly tacky. Once it hit that 95% mark, I took my Dixie Belle chalk paint in Magnolia, which is such a beautiful soft white. Using a clean brush, I dipped it in the white paint, dabbed most of the excess off onto a piece of paper, and began lightly brushing it over the blue. Because the blue paint wasn't 100% dry, the brush pulled and blended with the blue, creating the exact dusty, weathered blue look that the original Pottery Barn piece has. I also made sure to paint about an inch down into the inside rim so no bare glass peeks through at the top. To finish it off, you have options. You can seal it with an easy spray wax to protect it, or if you feel like you applied too much white, you can take a damp paper towel while it's still wet and gently dab it to let more of that gorgeous blue show through. The possibilities are endless. I am so happy with how this turned out. It is the absolute perfect transitional piece for spring and summer. Moving on to another clay project. Again, inspiration came from Instagram. I'm using a medium-sized styrofoam wreath for form as my base that I also picked up at Dollarama. Using a full block of clay, I rolled it up and then draped my clay over the form, letting it fall naturally into the center. I trimmed the edges and used very wet fingers and a sponge to pull the clay outwards, creating a beautiful scalloped, almost sunflower-like edge. I added a bit more clay to the bottom to reinforce it so it wouldn't break once dry. Did you know that organic imperfect shapes are a huge trend in 2026? The goal isn't factory perfection, it's that hand-sculpted artisanal feel that brands like Amber Interiors are known for. After drying and a few more mud touch-ups for minor cracks, I painted the whole piece, sides and bottom, in the same creamy magnolia paint and sealed it with gator hide. This piece is so versatile and I can use it for every season. Moving on to our next thrifted item, the moment I saw this bowl, I knew exactly what I wanted to recreate. I've been eyeing those carved stone bowls from Amber Interiors, and I knew I could replicate that organic, earthy texture. I started with a mixture of dried sage paint and baking soda. The ratio really depends on your piece. If your item is smooth, use more baking soda. If it already has texture like mine, use less. I went with about 1 part baking soda to 3 parts paint. Give it a generous coat and don't forget to paint the inside. Once the base was dry, I wanted to create that aged stone dimension. I took some milk chocolate chalk paint and a very wet paper towel. I dabbed the paint on the towel, blotted the excess, and then lightly dabbed it onto the bowl to blend. I just wanted to let you guys know that at the end of this video, I will be sharing how I styled all these 3 pieces in that after Christmas winter decor all over in my living room on the coffee table. So make sure you stay till the end to check that out. To make it look even more authentic, I went back in with original sage color and blended the two together on the surface. This technique creates a beautiful faux stone finish that looks much more expensive than it is. There are so many ways you can style this bowl. You can leave it empty on top of some books on your coffee table or on your nightstand to hold your jewelry, or you can add a candle to it. But I styled mine with some pine cones for that wintry look that I'm going for. DIY, I'm kicking things off with this vase. It had this chicken wire style cage over it and made it look like a little bit more industrial, but I saw potential. I've had it for years. It was recently tucked away in storage, and when I came across this gorgeous boat ride vase on Pottery Barn, this stunning moody blue with rusty looking base, I knew exactly what I wanted to do. That one is normally $149, and even on a clearance, it's still $118.99. But mine basically free and about to get a serious glow up. First order of business was to remove that cage. Couldn't find my wire cutters, story of my life, so I grabbed some shears instead. The wire was soft, so it actually came off pretty easily. Once I got the cage off, I pulled out the vase, gave it a good clean because wow, it was dusty, and took it outside to start the transformation. For the rustic base, I used a glossy leather brown spray paint. I sprayed the bottom third or so of the vase, leaving a little extra in case I needed to blend it later. Then I brought it back in and grabbed one of my all-time favorite blues, a Busan blue by Annie Sloan. It's rich, it's elegant, and that chalky finish gives glass that beautiful ceramic texture. I painted the rest of the vase, stopping just above the brown base using my Dixie Belle's Best Dang brush. Once it was dry, I wanted to soften it a bit and add a worn-in feel, so I mixed up some watered-down white acrylic paint. You can totally use white wax for this step too, but honestly, most people have acrylic paint on hand. Mine was towards the end, so I just added water directly to the bottle and mixed it up. I squirted it on the vase first, but I didn't love the way that was going, so I dabbed it on with paper towel, blending it until it looked like it had always been there, like it was meant to be this way. Then I sealed it with clear gloss spray to give it that polished, high-end sheen. And here it is. This might be one of my favorite vase flips yet. It's giving elegant coastal summer vibes, and I love how versatile it is year round. And if you're loving this Pottery Barn dupe already, go ahead and give this video a thumbs up. It really helps more people find these budget-friendly ideas, and it lets me know you're into these kinds of transformations. Kick things off with this metal milk can I thrifted years ago. It's had a few lives. It was once a funky green, then black, and then spray painted silver. But for the last 2 years, it's been just sitting in storage until now. I wanted to give it a whole new life, inspired by the aged, earthy looks of Olive Atelier's Pottery and other European-style urns. The shape isn't as an exact match, but it was the perfect base for this transformation. To start, I had glued jute rope around few areas to mimic the rigid details you often see on those old world pots. I placed the rope where there were already seams and where edging would naturally appear. Then I mix some plaster of Paris from Dollarama with water to create textures and cover any writing or old paint. Using a wide brush, I applied it generously over the whole piece, then used a smaller brush to get into the crevices, especially around the handles. One coat was enough to do the trick. Once dry, I lightly sanded the high spots to soften the texture and create more dimension. After brushing away the dust, it was time to paint. I used Dixie Belle's burlap mineral chalk paint with their big dang brush. It went on beautifully and one coat gave me full coverage. But since I was working outside, the paint dried quickly, so I spritzed it with water and then I rubbed garden dirt. Yup, real dirt. It gave me that weathered old world finish that I absolutely love. Once dry, I brushed off the excess dirt and admired this gorgeous transformation. You can seal it with the matte spray finish if you'd like, but I kept mine natural. And here is the finished piece, elegant, aged, and it cost me nothing but a little time and creativity. Last but not least, this ripped oval urn that's been through several makeovers over the years. It even had a lid once, but it broke. Still, I wasn't ready to give it up. The inspiration for this piece came from Olive Atelier's ripped oval urn that they have that is a similar looking style to what I have, just a different look. So I gave the one last chance to mine with a coat of the same Dixie Belle burlap chalk paint. Again, one coat was all it needed for smooth full coverage. One thing you'll see me reach for in almost every DIY project, whether I'm flipping furniture or transforming home decor, is chalk paint, and for good reason. I absolutely love using chalk paint, not just for furniture makeovers, but for everything. It has incredible coverage, even over tricky surfaces like glass, metal, ceramic, or thrifted decor with old finishes. No priming or sanding. Yes, please. Chalk paint has this gorgeous matte finish that instantly makes a piece look more high-end and custom. It's so forgiving and easy to work with, perfect for layering, distressing, or even creating texture. And because it dries quickly, I can get through projects faster, which is huge when you're juggling multiple DIYs. Whether I'm giving new life to an old urn, adding character to a vase, or even revamping seasonal decor, chalk paint is always my go-to. It helps me turn ordinary finds into elevated, high-end inspired pieces that look like they came straight out of the designer catalog. Once you try it, you'll be hooked too. Once it dry, I applied a coat of clear wax. Then while the wax was still tacky, I brushed on Dixie Belle's dirt, a great alternative if you don't want to use actual dirt or coffee grounds. I used a brush and paper towel to blend it into crevices and high points, adding more wax where needed to soften areas that looked too heavy. The result is this beautiful aged texture finish that looks straight out of the European antique market. I found this ribbed vase for $9.99 at the thrift store. I loved the pattern immediately because it reminded me of the rustic brown vase collection at Pottery Barn. In Canada, those vases can run upwards of $100 or more, so this is a true look for less. First things first, I gave it a deep clean. I know I mentioned this a lot, but cleaning your surface is essential. If there's any dust or residue, your paint won't bond properly. Take the extra minute, it's worth it. I used my leftover dried sage and baking soda mixture for the base coat. Since the vase already had that ribbed texture, the baking soda just added a bit of tooth to the finish. Once dry, I moved on to dry brushing technique using pinecone chalk paint. The trick is to dab your brush in the paint and then wipe almost all of it off onto a paper towel before hitting the vase. I followed the direction of the ribs, leaving some of the base color showing through. I repeated the same process with the milk chocolate, and then to finish it off, I dabbed it in certain spots to mimic the smudge, rustic look of the Pottery Barn original. This has become such a statement piece. It's a total conversation starter, the kind of decor my friends and I love to talk about. And there you have it. Can you believe how gorgeous this collection looks together? The best part is we've got the incredible high-end organic modern aesthetic without spending hundreds of dollars at a luxury home store. I'm starting off today with the designer dupe from Amber Interiors. I've been eyeing these beautiful carved stone bowls, but at $80 a piece, they're definitely on the pricey side. So I decided to recreate the look for a whole lot less. I picked up this ceramic bowl from Dollarama for just $1.50. You could also use similar ones from Dollar Tree or your local thrift store. The bowl already had some texture, but it was too repetitive. I wanted it to look more organic, more like a real stone. To give it the natural stone texture, I used Dixie Belle's mud and applied it with a small spatula, dabbing it in random spots. This process is quick and easy and really transforms the surface. Once the mud was dry, I painted the bowl using Dixie Belle's Ecru chalk paint, dabbing it on lightly with a damp paper towel. Then I layered in some coffee chalk paint from Dixie Belle as well in the same way for dimension, finishing with a touch of burnt umber acrylic paint to give it a warm aged patina. Amber Interiors suggests using these bowls as they are, or as candle holders or incense sand bowls. So that is exactly what I did. I added some sand and incense, and I absolutely love the result. It's such a beautiful and minimal addition to my decor. Speaking of incense, while browsing Amber Interior's site, I came across another beautiful incense holder that inspired my next DIY. I wanted to mimic the look, but couldn't find the perfect bowl, so I picked up a simple clay saucer for flower pots from Dollarama. For the incense holder insert, I grabbed some air dry clay, also from Dollarama, and shaped it into a small ball. Flattened one side so it could sit securely in the saucer. Using an incense stick, I made multiple holes, some slightly larger than others, to accommodate different sizes. I wrapped the clay in a damp paper towel while drying to prevent cracking. While the clay dried, I painted the saucer with Dixie Belle's Midnight Skies chalk paint, which is a rich dark blue-black. Once dry, I added depth with a mix of burnt umber and coffee chalk paint, lightly brushing it inside the saucer to replicate the dimension in the inspiration piece. Before attaching the incense insert, I applied Dixie Belle's gilding wax in antique gold to give it that elevated luxe finish. Once the gilding wax was on, I used Gorilla Glue to glue the piece to the little tray. So once assembled, it turned out to be such a chic, high-end looking piece, perfect on a coffee table tray or a shelf. If you're loving these DIY high-end home decor dupes, don't forget to tap that like button and subscribe if you haven't already. I share new budget-friendly designer DIYs every single week, and you won't want to miss what's coming up next. For my next project, I thrifted this piece that looked like a vase but actually has a small hole on the bottom. It may have originally been a candle holder. When I saw it, I was immediately inspired by the pleated ceramic vase from Heart and Hand with Magnolia at Target. I know, it's not a Pottery Barn dupe, but I did want to include this one in here. Now, even though their version isn't super expensive, it's impossible for me to get one since we don't have Target here. So I decided to DIY my own. First, I gave it a good cleaning. If you plan to use yours for real flowers with water, you can easily seal the bottom by cutting a piece of plastic or cardboard and attaching it with hot glue or silicone. Since I'll just be using stems, I left mine as is. For paint, I'm starting with Dixie Belle Cotton as base coat, making sure to cover the bottom and inside edges too. Once it dried, I mixed some sand from sandbox into the same paint color. This is such a great trick for adding texture and giving your piece that authentic handcrafted ceramic look. After painting with the textured mix, I sealed the base with Dixie Belle's clear coat and gloss, which gave it that beautiful pottery style finish. I love how this little vase turned out. It's perfect size for a coffee table, shelf, or even a fall entryway display. If you're loving these fall Pottery Barn DIY dupes so far, make sure to give this video a thumbs up because it really helps my channel grow. And don't forget to hit subscribe so you don't miss the rest of my high-end look for less DIYs coming this season. Next up is a dupe of Pottery Barn Artisan Studio Rope Candle, which sells for a whooping $79. I recreated the look using a citronella candle I found at Dollarama for $4.50. As you can see, the pot already had great texture, but I wanted to mimic the rope detailing from the inspiration piece. I used a nautical rope and hot glued it around the entire pot. Then, for even more authentic look, I mixed a bit of plaster of Paris into white paint and applied it over the rope to add texture and blend everything together. Once it dried, I painted the inside edge to unify the look without touching the candle wax. The great thing about citronella candle is that once they burn down, you can clean out the pot and reuse it, just pop in another candle or even make your own. And for under $6, this might be my favorite dupe so far. If you're enjoying these Pottery Barn inspired DIYs and want more high-end look for less, hit that like button and subscribe. I've got tons of budget-friendly decor ideas coming your way. We're kicking things off with a $4.50 glass vase I picked up at Dollarama. They have a great variety of shape and sizes. Any of them would work, but I chose the simple one to recreate a stunning dark glaze ceramic base I found on McGee & Co.'s for $26. First, I took the vase outside and gave it a coat of matte black spray paint as a base. I let that dry completely. fill a bucket or a bin with water big enough to submerge your vase. Now here's the fun part. Spray some looking glass spray paint. I used Krylon Silver Mirror Effect spray from Michaels directly into the water. This gives that dreamy mercury glass mirror-like texture. I followed up with light bursts of nutmeg and leather brown spray paint on top of the water as well, and then I slowly dipped the vase in. You can dip it from the top or bottom, either works. Just try to submerge it as much as possible to capture the marbled effect. Carefully lift it out, let the excess water drip off, and place it somewhere it can dry without being touched. Once dried, the finish is absolutely stunning, glossy, rich, and so high-end looking. I'm honestly obsessed with how this turned out. Next, I'm going to recreate the $35 Midvale crock from McGee & Co. Perfect for kitchen counters, but I'll be styling mine in the bathroom. I've had this old Maxwell House coffee tin laying around forever. We haven't drunk this coffee in years, but it's sturdy and great shape for this project. So it's not necessarily a dollar store find, but something that is easily found in pretty much any household. I painted the entire tin using Dixie Belle's burlap chalk paint. Just one coat gave great coverage, but if you're using regular acrylic paint, you can mix in a little cornstarch or baking soda for that thicker, more matte finish. Once the paint dried, I took it outside and misted it from a distance with leather brown spray paint, rotating as I went to get that natural speckled look. I added in a few quick sprays of black to give it more depth and dimension. I love how it turned out. It has that handmade rustic pottery vibe that's perfect for McGee & Co style. I'll be using mine to store bath tools and accessories. And that is a wrap on today's mega marathon. I hope you are feeling so inspired and ready to transform your space without spending a fortune. Every single one of these projects proves that you do not need a Pottery Barn budget to have a Pottery Barn home. If you tried any of these, I would absolutely love to see them. Drop a photo in the comments or tag me on Instagram. And if you enjoyed this video, please give it a thumbs up. It really does help this channel more than you know. Don't forget to subscribe if you haven't already, and check out this video right here for even more high-end DIY dupes. Thank you so much for spending your time with me today, and I will see you in the next one.